Hey gamers, Rob from ZborGaming here, and today we have another weapon guide for you. Today's weapon guide is on the UZI, one of the SMGs in Modern Warfare. We have a lot of information to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. So the UZI unlocks at level 34 and has a max weapon level of 55. We give it an above average rating. For a while, this was actually considered one of the worst weapons in the game, but the addition of the 41 round mags and some other weapon balancing that they did has now turned the Uzi into a very, very good gun in the game, depending on how you use it. So with that, the camo requirements are standard in the SMG class, and they're listed here in the bottom left hand. Base stats for the Uzi is 55 damage to the head, 34 to the chest, and 30 to the stomach and limbs. And that is the base damage range of about 0 to 15 meters. Has a mag size of 32 bullets, a fire rate around 600 RPM, and a pretty fast ADS speed of 184 milliseconds. The reload time is about a second and a half, and you can speed that up with sleight of hand to around 1 second, which is quite good. As far as all the attachments and the unlock levels, we have all of them listed here. You can see that two of them are in orange, and these are actually unlocked by challenges that you have to do. So if you want to unlock the FSS Carbine Pro barrel, you have to equip any barrel, the standard issue Woodstock, the 41 round mags, and get 2 long shot kills in 5 matches. So obviously, in order to unlock that barrel, you have to have the 41 round mags unlocked first, and that you need to have the 50 round mags equipped and get 3 hipfire kills in 5 matches. And you can see that the 50 round mags don't unlock to level 41. So you're basically not going to unlock either of these attachments until you're at least level 41 with the gun, and most likely you'll be around level 45 if you try to unlock both of these right afterwards. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to get a whole lot into the loadouts because I have a whole bunch of detail on recoil control and loadouts later in the video. And the last thing I'm going to mention on here is when you're using the Uzi, because it's a 9mm, this weapon is very effective if you add a pistol to it that also has 9mm ammo. So maybe look at the M19 or the Renetti as a secondary and throw on that fully loaded perk on your pistol, and you will have a substantial amount of ammo to deal with when you're using this gun, which is quite good. Again, I'm not going to touch a whole lot on the loadouts. Feel free to pause it here and take a look at these. These are some good balanced loadouts you can use, but I have some other ones coming up later in the video you'll probably want to look at. So with the advanced stats here, anything that's in orange is related to the 41 caliber rounds, and so the green is the base damage rounds. This has a couple different drop-off ranges. The first one's 0 to 15 meters. Then it drops off at 24, 37, then there's anything over 37 meters. The 41 caliber rounds actually changes the bullet drop-off range. So then you have a 0 to 18 meters, a 30, a drop-off at 35 and a half, and one at 45. So this definitely changes the profile. And you can see here that you do more damage over those different ranges, and you'll see how that plays out here as we go on. A couple other things to note here: this has a very high movement speed at 100% and the strafe speed at 67%. This is probably, outside of the pistols, the most I guess highest mobility weapon in the game outside of the pistols, so keep that in mind. As far as the recoil pattern, stick around, you'll see that. It's just got a little bit of vertical recoil, so this is a very nice weapon to use if you want to minimize that recoil. Like we said earlier, mag capacity is 32 rounds with 64 in reserve, and it's got pretty fast sprint out times at 200 milliseconds and 267 for that super and tactical. As far as some of the specialized attachments, we've got 4 different barrels you can use, as well as 3 different ammunition types. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these now because I go in depth on them later in the video. Feel free to pause this here. The other thing I will mention is that at ZborGaming.com, we have all of these weapon infographics available. I'll leave a link in the description below, so feel free to click on that and you can go ahead, pull these same screens up, Save the pictures if you want, and reference back to them at any time. So one thing in some of my past videos that people wanted to see was some of the aim down sight speeds. So what I did here on this page was list all the various attachments that affect the ADS speed for the UZI. If they're in yellow, there's a 0 to 1 frame slower. It's pretty minimal impact to your ADS. If it's in green, you're going to get a faster ADS speed with that attachment. And if it's in red, you're going to get a slower ADS speed. So all of these attachments here will list somewhere in the description that they affect the ADS speed either positive or negative. So you can go ahead and check that here. You can see your stipple grip, your factory mini, your tack laser, your no stock or the close quarters. All of these help improve that ADS speed time. Your ammo really doesn't affect it, even though it says it does. So keep that in mind. And then your underbarrels, your optics, etc. So as far as recoil control and accuracy, I've also sort of done the same thing here. Listed out all the attachments that affect either your recoil, stabilization or control, or your aim stability. Now, the whole rest of the video, I get into very in-depth on how all these are affected. So stick around, because some of these that say they affect the recoil may not, and some of them that don't say they affect the recoil actually do. So stick around. You don't want to miss that, because just looking at a chart and making a decision, you could actually be making the wrong decision. So stick around and watch what I got for you here. But you can see this base recoil pattern is quite nice and tight here. The other thing I'll mention too. So if we want to take a look here, you can see the fast ADS speed, and this is with the VLK optic equipped, which is actually going to slow it down a tiny bit. Here you can see the idle sway. There's not a whole lot of idle sway at 18 meters. Recoil control, you can see, is quite nice. And the description I have over here on idle sway, if you've never heard that term before, that's basically about how much the reticle moves while you're aimed down sight. So poor aim stability, this thing's going to be floating all over the place. And with good aim stability, this thing will be pretty tight. So if we go on the prior slide, that's everything in this column over here to the right. So as far as the recoil testing, we did this at 18 meters on Candor Hideout. And at this range, you can see your base damage using the 9mm rounds. You'll do 40 to the head, 25 to the chest or stomach, 22 to the limbs. So this is basically a 3, 4, or 5 shot kill. And with the 41 caliber rounds, you'll do 55 to the head, 40 to the chest, 34 to the stomach and limbs. So if we take a look and we compare the two ammos side by side, you can see here that the 41 caliber rounds actually basically double the amount of vertical recoil that you get. With some of the other ammo attachments, I've seen it where it doesn't affect it as much, but these 41 caliber rounds really do add a lot of extra recoil to the UZI. So take that in mind if you want to use that ammo. Now, looking at the various barrel attachments, one thing I was very surprised here is this 13.1 inch first responder barrel. It mentions nothing about recoil control in the description, and you can see that this was actually one of the best performing recoil barrels that I had here. Now you can also see here that I'm a little off vertical with where I started the pattern, but on the whole, this was a pretty nice pattern when you compare with the rest of them. The factory mini also in the description says it hurts your recoil, and compared to the base recoil pattern, there isn't much of a difference. So I don't see a whole lot of recoil downside using the factory mini, which is good. If you want to have a high mobility build, definitely go ahead and use this and don't worry about that recoil control. The factory carbine overall says it helps your recoil control, but here it looks like it actually more helps with your recoil stabilization. There was very little side to side jump, and the pattern pretty much just went straight up. So keep that in mind. The FSS Carbine Pro, this should have a pretty substantial help to your recoil, and I didn't see that a whole lot. You can see it definitely did help, but compared to the other barrels, there wasn't a drastic improvement. But keep in mind though, the big benefits with the barrels is the range. So you get that 30% range boost on your carbine, a 20% on your first responder, and a 25% on your factory carbine. And this bullet velocity, you will get some loss of damage range, probably on the order of 15% with that factory mini. So keep in mind that makes it much more of a close quarters barrel. Moving on to the muzzles and the grips. Here you can see them compared to the base recoil. The muzzle brake didn't really seem to do a whole lot. It looks like it did pull some of those initial shots a little closer to that first one. The compensator performed very well. You can see we have a whole bunch of bullets right here. Probably 10 to 15 bullets in the amount that on the base recoil pattern we only had 3 or 4. So definitely consider the compensator when loading out your gun. One thing I was surprised by here is the granulated grip tape. I threw this one in here and I'm glad I did because this actually worsened the recoil. The overall vertical recoil was worse with this grip, and there's nothing in the description stating it should be that way. So stay away from this grip tape. The rubberized grip tape really didn't seem to do a whole lot. Frankly, I would stay away from this one too. Neither of them really seem to help out at all. When looking at your underbarrel attachments, all of these seem to have some positive impact to your recoil control. The Merc foregrip, the Ranger foregrip both perform very well. Keep in mind if you use that operator foregrip, that comes with a 2-frame ADS speed penalty. So when you're comparing it to the Merc and the Ranger, which have a less than 1 frame, I would definitely go with one of these two before I went with the operator. The Commando foregrip helps you with both your aim stability as well as your recoil stabilization, and that's a good one to use when paired with the compensator. Keep in mind though, that doesn't have any ADS speed penalty, but it will hurt your movement speed a little bit. Now the dots to the right here are the recoil patterns with the 41 caliber rounds. So you can see how each of these compare, and in this case the Merc foregrip actually performed the best as far as overall vertical recoil with those 41 caliber rounds. However, you can see here though that the Commando foregrip had a lot more bullets on target right off the bat. So if you're burst firing the weapon like you should be, take a look at this Commando foregrip. Moving on to the stock attachments. Now here the no stock claims that it hurts your aim stability as well as your recoil control, and surprisingly I didn't see any difference to the base recoil pattern. In fact, I actually felt this performed better than the base recoil pattern when you compare the two side by side. So don't shy away from this attachment. That added movement speed and aim down sight speed is definitely worth it because the cons that it says here, you don't really see them when you test it. So definitely look at the no stock when running with the UZI. So went ahead here and did some test loadouts. You can go ahead. So loadout 2 is a good one. We had 32 bullets here on the left, and this is all 50 bullets on the right because I was running the 50 round magazine here. Loadout test 3, we threw the 41 caliber rounds on, and you can see here you got quite a bit more overall vertical recoil, but it looks like it is fairly manageable. There's not a lot of side-to-side bounce. Loadout test 4 had a very tight pattern. We had that compensator with the 16.5-inch barrel to get that added damage range. The Merc foregrip, the 50 round mags and no stock. So you get some mobility in here, some extra rounds, as well as some good recoil control. So this is a nice solid build, loadout test 4. So what you have here is 30 rounds, 20 rounds, and all 50 rounds. So I actually I messed this up, but then I decided I'd run 30, 20, and 50. Loadout test 1. This I was testing this monolithic suppressor, the 50 round mags, no stock. You can see that one bounced around a little bit, but on the whole still had a nice vertical recoil pattern. If you want to run a stealth build, take a look at loadout 1. So a couple more loadouts here we tried. Loadout test 5, we decided to go with a more mobility balanced build. You can see here that with the compensator, that factory mini, we got some more vertical recoil because of the 50 round mags. But when you compared the 32 round test to it, it was pretty comparable to that base damage profile. Loadout test 6 here, I was going for another balanced build. You can see this one actually performed very well. Outside of that first shot, the rest of them were all in a nice target pattern here, right at the top. And that has that stipple grip, the tack laser. So you're going to get a good blend here of mobility as well as accuracy. Loadout test 7, again, this recoil goes a little higher, but that's because we have those 41 caliber mags on. But again, a nice, fairly good recoil pattern. And loadout test 8, I was trying to see if I could get the most accurate build possible here with the lowest amount of recoil. So I put that VLK 3.0 optic on, compensator, that heavy barrel, the Carbine Pro, the Merc foregrip, and then I added the standard issue wood stock to help with that aim stability. And you can see here we had a very accurate build with that Carbine Pro and the 30% damage increase. That's going to take you out to about 20 meters or so on that base damage. And so this is a very accurate build, and definitely take a look at that one. I've had good success with this build in multiplayer. So just to touch on a couple of the builds here, definitely take a look at this build. This was loadout test 2. It's just a solid balanced build. If you want to run those 41 caliber rounds, I would suggest this loadout, that GI Mini Reflex, the compensator, commando foregrip, the 41 caliber mags, as well as a stipple grip tape. And then the last loadout suggested here is if you want to run a little slower play style, pick enemies off with the UZI, I would run this build. It's a little slower, more accurate, but on the whole, the overall mobility of the UZI should still play into an aggressive play style. So with that, that's all I had for the video today. A whole ton of information here. We had ADS speeds, recoil, a ton of information about the UZI. I hope that helped if you're looking to kit this weapon out. Again, thanks for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. 95% of the people watch my videos don't subscribe, so go ahead, subscribe. We got more weapon guides coming out soon. Again, thanks for watching.